Hello, it's Laurie from LR Design Studios, and this is Basics in Sculpting Part 4. We're going to be sculpting a baby hand today. I hope that you follow along step by step and listen to the tips and tricks along the way. If you enjoy this video, be sure to share it, like it. Let's get started. Okay, so where we left off last was we got the armature done and the head that fits on it, right? Okay, and now we're going to move on to the hands. Now these are still longer than they need to be, but that's okay because we're actually not going to sculpt the hands right onto the arms at this time. We're going to sculpt them separately and we'll add them on to the appropriate length once we get the body sculpted. And that will be 2 videos from now because after we do hands, we're going to do feet. But let's get on with the hands. What we're going to need for the hands is the face. First, we're going to need something to sculpt the hands onto. I'm just going to cut myself a couple lengths of wire. The length really doesn't matter because those will be cut down later. Okay, and then what we're also going to do is make a little loop here. There's a tool here to bend it over. Like a loop. Oops. Make a little loop. Yeah, that's good. All right, then we're going to take a little tinfoil. And we're going to, I don't want this to be too thick because this baby's not very big, so we don't want to bulk up the hands more. We just want something to be able to build onto. So I'm just going to wrap this little loop that I made with foil. I'm gonna make sure it's nice and flat and nice and tight on there. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other one. Okay. Now we got these about the same size, and I'm going to just put one to the side, and we're going to focus on just one right now. Okay. So our hands are usually somewhere between our chin and right above our brow bone, right about there, the whole hand. It's usually about that length. So there's a couple of rules of thought about this when you're talking about doing a doll. Hyper realistic, you're going to do the hands about that size. But there is such a thing called scaling, and it has to do with dolls looking more appropriate. For some reason, our eyes tend to play a trick on us when we are working in miniature sizes or something smaller than real life. And we tend to prefer, the eye tends to prefer some features to be a little bit smaller than what is actually proportionate. Hands and feet tend to be that way. Think of Barbie, for instance. And other dolls, you'll notice, also have very small hands and feet compared to what they would actually have if they were to actual scale. That is a preference. That is not a rule. If you're looking for hyperrealism, your hands are going to measure between here and here. And anywhere in between is a stylistic decision. Or even going bigger can be a stylistic decision. But one of the things I like to talk about with anatomy is you have to know it before you can deviate from it. You are totally allowed to deviate from it for your own stylistic impressions, your own interpretations. But for the sake of this video, we're going to try to keep it into the proper proportions. Okay, I'm actually going to Set this guy up here. There we go. I still keep calling him a guy. He will be sculpted as a girl, believe it or not, but keep calling him a guy, but the body will be a girl. Okay. So the first thing, I've already conditioned some of this clay, but the first thing we're going to do, and we're going to want to do it 2 of these balls about the same size to make the palms so that we're already similar with the other hand. That one's already bigger. I do know some artists who actually use a scale, like a gram scale, and they will measure out their pieces of clay, weigh them to make sure they're the same when they're doing parts of the bodies that need to be the same. I'm more of an eyeballer. However, I do see the benefit in that for people who are wanting to make sure they're very, very precise. Okay, so that should be right. All right, so what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna flatten this out kind of a long way. Maybe a little bit wider on top, doesn't really matter because it's gonna all shrink back down. I'm gonna set this guy right there, and I'm gonna wrap it in this clay. And I'm gonna kind of shape my palm. Well, I am going to get a rough shape of the palm. Smoothing out as I go. Keep in mind down here will be where your wrist is going to attach. And there's a couple different ways that we can approach that. But right as of now, we're gonna try to keep the hand cut off right there as much as possible instead of bringing anything down that will go inside the arm, because we might want to pose this arm, you know, with the hand bent a little and such. And if we sculpt down this way, we're not gonna be able to do that. So if you can keep it right up under, like right in here, that's where we're looking at ending our hand. Just trying to get a good base of my clay. So filthy. That's okay. I've handled this stuff a lot in the last few days, just doing different things. Okay. Okay. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit on top here. Not a lot, just a little. Kind of curve it. Once I flatten it out, it's like here's pinky, you know, thinking about the other fingers going across, thinking about where my thumb's going to go in. Then I'm going to kind of pinch it again to kind of round it up a little without it having to be too flat on top, but have the flat spot to add my fingers. This can all be reshaped when we're done. Okay, then I'm gonna set that down. I'm gonna save this little one for the next one. Okay, now I'm gonna start creating some little sausages. Now, if I was being clever, when I made my sausages, I would make 2 sets of them. So I would make them so they match thumb, you know, the fingers all along in a line down to the pinky so that they match each other. But I'm not going to do that for sake of time. I'm going to just be doing the one hand. Okay, we're going to start with a thumb. And I just make a little sausage and I kind of keep it fatter at this end and kind of flatten it out like this so I have somewhere to add it on. Most of my shaping of my fingers comes after I have added them to the hand. Otherwise you end up smushing them anyway. But you get kind of your basic shape. Add a little, well, this is going to add onto the palm. It's going to go right up in there. We're going to attach it to that flat spot that we created before. So this is the inside of our hand. And I'm going to smooth this here and smooth it in. We might add more clay onto this later to where it connects, but right now we're not going to worry about that. Not going to worry about that detailing as of yet. We're just getting the fingers and thumb attached at this point. Not as worried about shaping too much. Okay. Now, if we make our sausages longer than we'd like them to be, or fatter or thinner, that's always something that can be adjusted. I don't always get it right the first time. It's kind of a little game I play with myself. Just gonna set this right down on top of there for now. I'm gonna take, oh, what tool am I gonna take? I'm gonna take just one of these ball stylists and gently kind of etch this into each other, kind of blend it down in for now. Just kind of connecting the clay to the hand, the finger to the hand, all the way around. Again, we will be shaping this and detailing it later. This is just to form that connection. Okay. I'm also going to test right now my hand size, and I've got, oh, that's exactly where it needs to be as far as the length of the hand. It shouldn't be any bigger than that. This might even be a little unpleasant. I mean, it might be a little bit on the big side for my taste, but it does measure correctly. However, I do tend to be one of those that on the smaller dolls, I like smaller hands because for me it's more aesthetically pleasing, but this is biologically appropriate. It's correct as far as all that goes, as far as proportionately, as far as realistically proportionately. I just think smaller dolls, again, it's a scaling thing. The smaller down they go, there's a lot of things with scaling to me that I think hands and feet look better smaller. I think also colors, when you dress them or put hair on them and things like that, they look better with a softer, more muted color the smaller they get. It's part of the scaling process. Anyway, it's just something our eyes like to see. But again, for this particular video, I'm going to do this hand, the hand this size. Now, when I actually do the body and I add hands, I will probably make smaller hands for this baby. We'll see. Because I am going to mold and cast this doll, and I want it to be the way I like it versus the basic way. So, all right. I want to make sure my middle finger is not really fatter, just a little longer. But not too long, not a lot longer. Just a little, but I don't want it skinnier either. Definitely not skinnier. Okay. That looks pretty good. I'm going to attach these onto, this one onto. Again, this isn't, we're not making it look great yet. We're just getting our fingers attached. I can't help but play with it along the way though, which I'm trying not to do. I'm trying to keep it real basic here for you. Okay, and now the next finger is going to be about the same as the first. Oops, sorry. I gotta watch my monitor, make sure I'm keeping things in the screen. As I've gotten older, I've gotten so that I like to keep things closer to my face when I work, and as my vision is starting to cloud a little bit, bit smaller yet. And I'm finding that that's not helpful in the video because I really can't keep I gotta keep it a little bit further from my face than I'm used to, but that's okay. I can still see. I need to get to the eye doctor about that. Okay. Still gonna just make sure it's attached. Again, it doesn't really matter how much what that attachment looks like right now. Just make sure it is attached. Okay, I'm gonna move these over a little bit because I need some room for my pinky. The other thing I tend to do, which this isn't, I tend to usually make my fingers thinner than this, but not everybody does super thin fingers, and not all babies' fingers are super skinny. So we're trying to you could just keep it a 4-fingered doll and make it a Navi. None of my Navis have been 4-fingered, even though I guess they're supposed to be. Oh, that's for my other one. Okay, and the pinky is quite a bit smaller than the other ones, quite a bit shorter. And thinner. That's better. We will add more clay onto the side here. I usually always end up needing to. I always end up needing to pad that out a little bit. This needs to be blended more here too. Okay. Well, I can tell you right now that for me, these fingers are too fat. This is just not my personal style to go this fat on the fingers. I also like to push them down so they get fatter at the bottom and thinner at the top. So when you push them down, you kind of get more of that little chunk down, and you get that kind of bubble right there. When you get them on and you kind of push it down, you get that fatter bottom part of your finger. And also it shortens up the fingers, which they needed to be a little bit shorter. Okay. And I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to kind of just work into these edges and get this connected even better. Get between the fingers without skinning any, without making them too skinny. I'll push this thumb forward a little bit. Say hands are probably one of the most difficult parts. I mean, for me they are. I don't know if they are for everyone, but they are for me. Just because it just kind of takes, not like, it just never seems to turn out exactly the same every time. And it takes a while to get the shape right, or how you, close to right for you. Okay, so still not really happy with the connection here. Let me see if I can use my rubber tip tool here. It's not connected. The clay's not blending right here very well. I'll show you another method real quickly too for doing small hands. This is basically how I sculpt my larger hands, like this, by adding the fingers on after. There's another method you can do where you make a paddle and you cut into it and make the fingers that way. It's a little bit easier to do it that way when you're working on smaller dolls. Not so much with the bigger, well, I guess I don't know. I never really did it with the bigger dolls. I guess I really don't. So, okay, so now I'm just gonna start etching in like these little lines for where the finger attaches to the hand. So just to kind of like give it a little detailing. I just don't want to move these closer together. Get this guy up here. All right. I'm adding a little clay to the side here because I don't want to add too much coconut oil because this is such small piece of clay that it's going to get way too soft, and then my detailing is going to be almost impossible. Okay. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of padding here. Let's see. This hand is a little big for his face, but well, I don't really think this finger needs to be this much bigger. Okay. Flatten this piece out. That's not big enough. Oh, God bless me. Okay, now I'm going to take my rubber tip tool. I'm going to blend. First I'm going to cut down into like all these different where these different pieces come together, I'm going to blend them together but keep the shape intact. Like blend all the pieces in while keeping the bulges here intact. So up in between the fingers a little bit. Again, I think this hand, to me, aesthetically, is it's just a little too big. It's within range of being what it should be, but I, for smaller dolls, definitely like to scale down on the hands and feet. It's just my preference I like them to look more dainty. But for the video, I think this is a really good size to show you on how to do it. I will be making new hands for the doll itself. Okay, I'm gonna use just a tad bit of coconut oil because my clay is already starting to get a little sticky and I am not loving that. But I do want this to, okay, so then I'm gonna take this ball tip stylist and start also going back in and drawing some lines in to where the fingers would come in. This is not attached very well, if you can see right there. Sometimes the clay does not want to stick to itself. Well, there we go. I just had to really get in there. All right, now we gotta build that back up right there. Right there. Push some clay up into it. Put that a little bit. Just trying to create those shapes and the lines here. It's going to be, so bringing this in a little bit, making sure the curve is all the way around here. Bringing it in, making sure the curve is here. Here too. Around to this. And there's another wrinkle right here. One of the problems that we tend to have, me too, is that we flatten our fingers out as we're sculpting them. So you can try to go back in and try to make sure that you're keeping them rounded. Okay, this will be worked on some more as we're shaping, but this is just getting your basic shape down. Okay, so we've got the lines here, got a line across here, 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 and then we can just add a few more lines in if we want, but basically etching in this line. You can make it deeper through here if you'd like. Sometimes there's some little wrinkles here. Okay. Now I've got the two sets of lines here that come, and then we've got a line here. So this is where your knuckle bends. It's on the opposite side of this. And okay, so I'm going to take my needle tip tool, and because you notice it's cut into about thirds. Third, third, third. So it's not in the middle. It's actually down here. So it's like right here. And right about there-ish. I push down and then I push up. Again, push up and push down to create the little pads there. Makes it a little easier. And go in with your brush. Again, try to keep that curve. Try not to flatten it out too much. It's really easy to do. Also, if you can kind of give it a little bend when you're doing that, you can start creating where this knuckle needs to go. And also a little bend when you do that. You can also start creating where that knuckle needs to go. This knuckle doesn't need to be as distinct. Okay. Now, I'm going to take, what's my easiest? Okay, the rubber tip tool here, and see where we got this bend here. I'm going to start actually flattening this out a little bit. Not really, just kind of moving the clay towards it, and then moving the clay towards it here and around. So it, again, we don't create total flat surface, but we're creating a little bulge here and here, and also on the knuckle. We're kind of creating this finger shape by moving the clay a little. Okay, so back at it here. Sorry about that. Trying to show this right here. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, again, we're gonna just keep working this until we have the shape. We're gonna bend it a little bit more still and make sure we don't flatten it out too much. We're gonna blend these lines up a little. Now this one, because it's a double line, now we will make it a double line. Now that, see, it's almost kind of done it already on its own, but we'll make it the double line now. Yeah. And then blend it in a little. Okay, I wanna kind of point to get the little tip of this pad of the finger, like right like this. Oops. I'm still blending. I don't want sharp edges at all. We're going to do that with the rest of all the fingers. Same exact thing that we did on this one. Okay, right on there. I'm going to soften all the lines here because I like it a little bit softer. I'm going to create the tip of this a little bit better. Take my needle tool. So we've got a bend here. And we got a slight line here, here. So we got a knuckle on this. Okay, so put a bend here. I like to bring this way a little. Again, we're going to create a knuckle by pushing down here, pushing up here. Create a little Of course, the baby's hand's fatter than mine. I'm just showing you the basic anatomy of the hand when I do that. Again, we don't want to make too many flat spots. Okay, so a little bit here, a little bit here. Okay. Now again, we're going to do the same thing with all these other fingers. I'm just not going to take the time in this video to do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the detailing on the front. So I'm going to take the needle tip tool. I'm going to cut in to where the base of the nail would be. And usually I go along and do that with all of them. And then I'm going to cut in to the side and in to the other side. Creates that skin around the nail. See that? When you push this way with it, instead of straight down, if you could push straight down, you're just creating like a lump. So then what we're going to do for the top of the nail is we're going to come up underneath where we'd want the nail to be, and we're going to push forward. It gives us a little lip of a nail. Oops, I'm sorry. It gives us a little lip of the nail. And then what I do is I give a little pinch this way. And I take with a little coconut oil on it, and I brush up on the nail to bring that edge up. Gently go around the edge I created. And sometimes I go back in and just reinforce that line. underneath. And then I give it a little under, I like to create a little underline there. Then on the knuckle that we created there, I do a couple little lines. And then on this knuckle, I do about 3 or 4 little lines. And that's a finger. And we do the same thing on all of the fingers. And then you have a basic hand. We'll do the same thing on the thumb. Or I cut down, cut in to the side, cut in to the side. I'll cut this side a little further. There we go. And then cut forward. And give it a little pinch. Reshape a little. My clay's getting very soft. The other thing is if your clay gets a little too soft, you can put it in the refrigerator for a little while and it'll firm up. And a line there, and then a couple of lines across here. Okay. And so yeah, we do that with all the fingers, and we have created a hand. The other thing that you would want to do is to create a few little wrinkles in the front, if you choose. I like to create, but this I would look at pictures of babies for, to create a couple little fat wrinkles, however you'd like to do it, mostly. But just look at a picture of a hand that you like, and however you decide to pose your fingers, the wrinkles will be different. But I'm not going to go into that right now because this is just the basics in sculpting a hand, and I think that's good. I think that's where we'll go. Thank you.